Okay, so now we're going to solve radicals, but these are going to be level 2. So the solving will be a little tougher. The steps are the same, but the solving's a little tougher. So, same as before, we want to make sure we get our square root or our cube root alone, and then we use a power to cancel it out. So, in this case, we square. So, p squared equals 2 minus p. We have something that's squared that we need to solve. And so we have to remember that if something is squared, we need to solve it after we make it equal to 0. So this would be subtract 2, add p, subtract 2, add p. This will be p squared plus p subtract 2 equals 0. That puts it in standard form, a largest exponent first, which makes it easier for factoring or using the quadratic formula. This one factors pretty quickly using the shortcut. Since a equals 1, we know it's p and p to make p squared. And then we're looking for the numbers that multiply to negative 2 that add to be positive 1, which happen to be plus 2 and minus 1. So if we set each of those equal to 0, using the zero product property, we would get p equals negative 2. And we'll have p minus 1 equals to 0, so we would add 1, we'll get p equals 1. Then that means we have 2 equations to check. So hold that, and I will plug them into the calculator and show you the result. Okay, so the confusion on this one will be that you have to put in the negative 2 for both p's, the p on the left and the right. So when we're checking, we'll have negative 2 equals to the square root of parentheses 2 minus negative 2. I'll have to make sure that works. When I type that into my calculator, I get negative 2 equals to, when I type this side in right here, I get positive 2. Which is not right. So this is an extraneous solution. On the other side, when I put in 1 equals to the square root of 2 minus 1, I get 1 equals 1, which does work. So p equals 1 is the only answer. Okay. Next problem. Works the same way, but the solving will be a little different. You'll notice that the square root of 8x is already alone, so we'll go straight to square both sides. So we'll have x squared equals to 8x. Square and square root cross out. So when there's an x squared, I want to make the equation equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 8x. These are not like terms, so I'll have x squared minus 8x equals to 0. This time, AC method is not going to work. When I only have 2 terms, I look for greatest common factor, which happens to be x. So I'm going to divide both by x. That leaves me x minus 8. And I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. So x equals 0, x minus 8 equals 0. So add 8 right there, that'll be x equals 8. My 2 possible solutions are x equals 0 and x equals 8. And then I do my check. So again, I have to put the answer I got in for both of my x's. So here I would get 0 equals 0. I would type in the square root of x minus 8 minus 0, in my calculator. And I would get that, which means that x equals 0 is working out. And on the other side, I'll have 8 equals to the square root of 8 times 8. That would be in parentheses. If I try the square root of 8 times 8 on my calculator, I will get 8. So I'll get 8 equals 8, which means 8 also works out. So in this case, no extraneous solutions. The answer we get, both answers we get work. All right, moving on. If we have x plus 7 equals x, square root of x plus 7 equals x minus 5. The square root is alone, and so we'll square both sides. This is where it gets tricky though. When I square and square root, it crosses off like normal. But how do I square an x minus 5? Squaring means you multiply it by itself, so I have to multiply x times x minus 5 times x minus 5, which means I have to FOIL. Dun dun dun. So I'll have x plus 7, that's the easy part. Okay, so when we're FOILing, we have to do first, so x times x is x squared. Outside, we'll get negative 5x. Inside, we'll get negative 5x. And last, negative times negative will turn positive 25. So there's a lot more work to getting this one ready to solve. So we can start by combining the negative 5x and the negative 5x and getting negative 10x. And we'll notice, hey, I have an x squared, so I'm going to have to make this equal to 0 and factor or use quadratic formula. So this time it's easiest to move these to combine them with their like terms. So x squared minus 11x plus 18. And factoring is not going to be too bad because a equals 1 in front of the x squared, so we can go to the shortcut. There are two numbers that multiply to 18 and add to negative 11. Think about it, think about it, think about it. A negative 2 and a negative 9, right? So if we make each one equal to 0, we get x equals 2 as a possible solution. And add 9, so positive 9 is our other possible solution. But then, of course, we have to do the check for both. So back in the original problem, square root, parentheses, 2 plus 7, does it equal 2 subtract 5? And the answer is no, because I get 3 on that side, and I get negative 3 on that side. So x equals 2 is an extraneous solution. Cross it off. Okay. What about 9? Square root, parentheses, 9 plus 7. Type that in the calculator, see what you get. And 9 subtract 5. So on this side you get 4. On this side you get 4. So that checks. 9 is the only solution that works. Remember, if you are unable to factor something, it is valid to use the quadratic formula to solve an x squared equation. Please remember you may have to use all of the AC method, not just the shortcut for the AC method. Okay, now that third problem was not going to fit on the previous slide, so I've just made a blank slide here, and we'll do this third example. Actually, I think this is the fourth example. Okay, so on this one, the square root is not by itself yet, so step 1 is going to be to add 6. So 2x plus 15 equals 2x plus 6. So then we'll square both sides, which crosses off the square root. So 2x plus 15 equals 2x plus 6 times itself. So we're going to have to FOIL. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 6 is 12x. 6 times 2x is another 12x. And 6 times 6 is 36. That equals 2x plus 15. But it needs to equal 0 because I have an x squared and I'm going to have to factor. So I'm going to subtract my 2x over, and I'm going to subtract my 15 over, and I'm going to do one giant combining of like terms. So 0 equals 4x squared, 12x plus 12x subtract 2x is 22x. And 36 subtract 15 is 21, plus 21. Okay, that does not have a greatest common factor, even though the first two numbers could divide by 2. 21 does not. My A times C would be 84. I'd be looking for numbers that multiply to 84 and add up to be 22. Let me pause and think about that. I can find no pair of numbers that multiplies to 84 and adds to be 22, so I believe we're going to be using the quadratic formula. A is 4, B is 22, and C is 21. So x equals negative b, that would be negative 22, plus or minus the square root of 22 squared minus 4 times a times c, so 4 times 21, all over 2 times a, so 2 times 4. So I know I'm dividing by 8. That's the easy part. And I'm going to have to use my calculator to figure out what this equals. So 22 squared minus 4 times 21 is 148. Okay, so I have to do negative 22 plus the square root of 148, press equals, and then divide by 8. So x equals negative 1.229. And I have to do negative 22, subtract the square root of 148, press equals, and divide it by 8. So negative 4.271 when I round it. These values I should have to plug in and check, but I am out of space to even write that. They do both work if you plug them back in to the original math problem. So carry them back up to this equation and see if they work out there. If you have questions in class, please let me know.